This thing is the 2011 thing, not the other thing that came out in 1982, although it is a prequel to the 1982 thing. And the events of the 2011 thing take place immediately before the events of the 1982 thing, so I hope you've kept up there. It follows Kate, a paleontologist played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and she's been brought in to assist a team of Norwegian scientists at their Antarctic base. They've discovered a large spaceship frozen into the ice, and nearby what looks like an alien also frozen into the ice. So they cut the alien out in this large block of ice and take it back to their base to investigate further, where of course it defrosts and escapes and then starts causing mayhem around the camp, killing and assimilating its victims. And again, because of the way it does this, it effectively every cell mimics every cell of its victim. It's almost impossible to work out who's been infected and who isn't, and who is still human. As a heroine, Kate is really quite good. She's not a kick-ass action heroine by any means, but she's very bright and she uses her brain and whatever else she has to hand. She's a sort of stoic presence who is really someone you want on your side. She's the person who works out how the thing is operating and also what its weak spots are in terms of being able to work out who's infected and who isn't. And I won't spoil it for you, but suffice to say it's one of the few times that terrible British oral hygiene would probably work in your favour. There's some similarities with the first film. There's a high gore quotient and there's some very impressively unpleasant transformation scenes to watch. In fact, one thing that's nice, well, I wouldn't say it's nice exactly, but we get to see the two-faced sort of alien-human hybrid from the first film, and it's quite clever to see how that creature comes about, and it really is disgusting to look at, and I have small children, so trust me, I know what disgusting looks like. There's one or two scenes where they've actually mimicked them. It's a film about mimicry from the first film, which is quite clever. It'd be interesting to see who spots what. I guess in terms of differences, more of the action takes place outside, which unfortunately lessens the tension a bit because outside actually it's quite nice. It's snowy and it's sunny and it's hard. It might be quite nice for a holiday, even if there is an alien trying to kill you. And it does lessen the tension. There is that sense of claustrophobia within the camp, and much use is made of the fact that people are speaking different languages and how even within the group they can sort of create this separateness themselves. So that does work quite well. It doesn't work as well as the first film. The first film was a real classic because it had in sort of perfect quantities the kind of allegory sort of the Cold War, plus it has a great gore factor. Carpenter never stints on that. Plus you had the psychological horror, and he's such a great filmmaker that they really came together in the right quantities to make what has been sort of reappraised as this classic film. The 2011 thing is not a classic in the same way. It's not a bad film, and I enjoyed it as a sci-fi horror. It works pretty well, but it doesn't have the multi-layered approach that that the first film has. And I wonder whether, I mean, essentially they've had to reverse engineer this film because it takes place immediately before the events of the 1982 film, and maybe you can spend too much time making sure that the props are in the right place, which of course you have to do because there's so many fans of the first film who will know every second of it. But perhaps maybe they didn't spend enough time working more in depth on making it a more sort of multi-layered piece of filmmaking. But it's an interesting film, and it certainly engaged me, and it's probably one I'd watch again. I just wouldn't expect it to give me so many different things on different watches, which is what you would get by watching the original film.